It comes on the rainiest of nights. Before I start, I do not know what this scene truly is or where it comes from, but I've seen it on 4 separate occasions. All I know is that it has shown up outside of my house only when it's downpouring in the middle of the night. Not every rainy night, but the rainiest ones. The ones where the rain is whipping sideways and the entire structure of your house is creaking from the wind. That kind of rain. Anyway, as I recall, I was 8 years old the first time I saw it. My parents had tucked me into bed at around 8:30 or so, and at this time, a storm had just started to pick up outside. At the time, I loved the sound of storms and thunder, so I lulled off to sleep pretty quickly as the patter of rain against my window drowned out the sound of the TV in the living room. I didn't know what time it was, but sometime in the middle of the night, I just woke up. I wasn't startled awake, but I awoke. The light from the living room was out, so I knew my parents were asleep, and the storm outside had intensified to an insane level. Now, usually at that age, I would always be too scared to get up out of bed in the middle of the night. But for some reason, this time was different. I felt a pull to look out of the window. I got up and walked over to the blinds, the sound of the whipping rain only 3 feet from me. I leaned over to my toy box and separated 2 of the bottommost blind strips and looked outside. At first, I couldn't see anything except the torrential rain and the American flag that was whipping in the wind in front of my house. I looked harder down the street and then I saw it. Goosebumps flew across my skin as my eyes widened. Standing at the bottom of our driveway was a very tall black figure. It had to be over 8 feet tall and was very lanky, and it was skinny and had no visible features. But even through the rain, I could make out its shape. It was humanoid. It didn't seem to have a head, or at least no neck to show for it. But that was all I could tell about its looks. There was one thing that I knew for sure, though, that it was facing my window. I started gasping for air as I stumbled from the window, letting the slit in the blinds close shut. I fell onto my butt, gasping for air. There was just something not right about that thing. I ran into my parents' room yelling and screaming. They jumped up, looking terrified at my reaction. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I mentioned something at the bottom of the driveway. My dad grabbed the metal baseball bat from underneath the bed and made his way out to the front of our house and stood in the open front door with the porch light on, looking out into the rain, water coming in through the front door. After a minute, he closed the door and came over to me. "Are you sure you saw something?" I nodded vigorously. "Maybe you just thought you saw something through all that rain." He stood up and ushered me back into my room. I couldn't sleep for 2 more weeks. I went to school exhausted every single day, and my parents would let me sleep in their room for a few nights to try to comfort me. They even talked about bringing me to a psychiatrist since I wouldn't sleep. But before that was needed, I managed to fall asleep on my own one night. Before long, I thought to myself, I probably just saw it wrong. Maybe it was just the rain and my sleepy eyes that distorted what I saw. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. The second time I saw it, I was 14, same house, and the same room. I had my door closed as I slept, and the sound of whipping wind woke me up. A storm must have started while I was sleeping. It was getting strong, too. The events of that night flew back to me like deja vu. My eyebrows raised as I involuntarily raised my shoulders since I was so scared and so chilled. I don't know why I did this. I really shouldn't have, but I stood up and I walked over to the blinds. A tear fell from my eye in fear as I parted the blinds. And there I was in the middle of the yard. I stumbled back screaming. In a second, my parents were in my room. I pointed to my blinds, unable to form audible words. My mom grabbed me and looked at me asking if I was okay. My dad looked at the blinds only to turn back to me. There's nothing out there. The same ordeal happened with me, not being able to sleep, and this time my parents admitted me to a psychiatrist. Long story short, it didn't work. I saw what I saw, and no one believed me. I had pretty much linked storms to that creature at this point, and I had given it a nickname. I know it's kind of cheesy, the Rain Lurker, but I told my friends at school all about it. But of course, still, no one believed me. My friends started to get annoyed at how much I talked about the Rain Lurker. Some started to distance themselves, saying I was getting too weird. I was constantly researching online for odd sightings like this, but I found nothing promising. One night when I was 16, I awoke during a freak storm, and I knew what was happening. Taking a deep breath, I reached over to the side of my bed to grab my charging phone off the ground. I slowly and quietly opened the camera and slid out from under the covers and creeped over to my window and kneeled. I had been waiting for this moment. After a large gulp, I slowly opened the blinds, and everything came rushing back again. But I didn't see it though. I brought my phone up to the window and looked left down the street. It was then that I saw it. It was walking down the middle of my street, away from my house, hardly visible through the rain. It was walking slowly, and it seemed to be dragging something behind it. It looked like a body, and I froze in the moment, staring at this thing that had been haunting me for years. Not being seen for 2 years, and it was right there in front of me. I almost forgot to take the picture. I hit the button, but the screen showed nothing but dark and a few specks of rain. I cursed myself as I looked back up the street, and it was gone. I didn't want to be at that window anymore. I ran back to my bed and jumped under the covers, pulling them up above my head and wrapping them under my feet. I stayed like that for the rest of the night, and I didn't sleep. I'm 19 now, and I just saw it again a week ago. I'm only now gathering the courage to write about this, and this time I was more prepared. I had saved up for a high-definition night vision camera and had it set up next to my window always. My parents kept trying to get me to take it down, saying it was unhealthy, but I persisted. They said I shouldn't have spent over $1,000 on a camera and that I should have put it towards college, but again, I persisted. Anyways, I've been back for the summer from college for a few months now. I only have a week before I go back, and as far as I know, the Rain Lurker only shows up at my house. It started raining at around 7 p.m. and I went into my room and locked the door, saying I was tired and that I was going to sleep. It was really raining hard and lightning kept lighting up the sky. I turned the camera on standby and just waited behind the closed blinds for something. I wasn't sure if I had to be asleep for this thing to appear, but this was one of the hardest rains I'd ever seen, so I just waited, sitting on the foot of my bed. By 3 a.m. I started to nod off. The sound of a passing car driving through the flooding street woke me back up. 3:21 a.m. I sensed something wrong, almost evil. The kind of feeling that none of your 5 senses pick up, but somehow you still feel it. The kind that makes your hair stand up and makes you freeze because any small movement will alert it to your presence. It had arrived. With one steady breath, I reached over to the blinds. Suddenly, my window exploded and glass shattered me as a dark, somewhat humanoid hand shot through my window and grabbed me. I leaped back with a scream as I hit my dresser in the front of my room. The hand withdrew faster than the speed of sound through the tangled blinds, and I was just standing there, gasping for air, staring through the window. My parents barged into my room, scrambling for the light. I don't remember exactly what happened after that, except my mom hugging me on the ground, my dad calling the police, and the cops arriving when all was leaving the house to spend the rest of the night at a hotel. "I'm sorry we didn't believe you," my mom said, crying as she hugged me on the way to the hotel in the police SUV. Some say I staged the broken window just to make people believe me. But the way the window broke inward and all the glass scratches on me proved I hadn't done it. I just wanted to get my story out here on the web so that others can hear it. Please, if anyone in the Chicagoland area has seen anything like this, message me immediately. I will continue to do more research on the Rain Lurker and will be waiting for the next appearance. My parents have installed security cameras around our house, so maybe we'll catch it on one of those. I still can't go back in my room after the incident though.